Hey, Chris Ferdinandi from GoMakeThings.com here. Last week, my buddy Dominic shared this tweet about how he created this Who Should Drive app in Vue in like 20 minutes. It's pretty cool. You add some names. So we've got, let's say Chris, Chuck, Jim, Lisa. Then you just click Who's Driving, and it randomly selects a name from the list to be the driver. So I thought it'd be kind of neat to see if we could recreate this in vanilla JavaScript in about the same amount of time. So Dominic said it took him about 20 minutes. That's kind of our benchmark. So if I'm looking at my clock, it's about 9:55 a.m. right now. So let's say by like 10:15, I'd like to have this done. So let's give that a shot and see how it goes. I'm recording this just kind of off the cuff. I haven't tried to build this yet, so this could go terribly. I'm hoping I run into some hiccups so I can do a little debugging, because it's always good to see how that process goes. Yeah, we'll just see what happens. The only prep I've done in advance is I've got my little kind of hello world dummy page set up here and opened up in Sublime Text, so we can work on that. So let's get started. So first thing I'd like to do is obviously just kind of get the basic structure here set up. I'm less worried about style, so I'm not going to make this look exactly like Dominic's page. It'll probably look a little different. That's okay. I really just want to get kind of that functionality baked in. So let's start by adding an H1 here. Who should drive? ? We know we're going to need to have a section with the names of folks there, and it's going to be just a list. So let's create a little UL for that. The one thing his doesn't have, at least visible, that I'd like to see is a label. So name of driver, and it's going to be for, let's see, driver. We got input ID. Actually, so let's say potential driver. Okay, ID potential driver. We'll give this a placeholder, right? Equals. So we'll go name of driver, ... And then we're gonna have a place where the actual driver gets output. And that'll go here. So if I reload the page, I should have something like this. Oh, yeah, we also need this Who's Driving button, right? So button ID equals pick driver, who's driving, ? All right, cool. So we've got the basic structure set up here. Super ugly, not a huge problem. Let's go ahead and start actually dropping in our scaffolding here. So we're actually gonna make some stuff happen. So actually the first thing though, this is redundant. I'm gonna make this name of driver. It's important to have that in there for accessibility purposes. If someone's reading with a screen reader, they're not always gonna read out loud the placeholder value, and they need to know what this field is for. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna grab from Kraken. I'm just going to steal this. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, Kraken is my open source boilerplate for getting projects started. One of the pieces in there that I kind of took out of HTML5 boilerplate is this screen reader class that you use to make text visually hidden but still accessible to screen readers. So let's just go ahead and apply that to our label there. So now it's gone, but the functionality kind of persists. And then the other thing that he has here is this little this button that you use to add a list of folks who are driving. So let's go ahead and add that too. So we'll just make that a link for now. Actually, it really should be a button. So let's go button, add driver. ID equals add driver. Yeah, so I'm not gonna, again, I'm not doing a one-on-one kind of visual match for his. If we have time, we'll kind of bolt that in later. I just want to get the core functionality in here. So now there's a couple things we want to do. The first is, let's go ahead and let's see, document query selector. So we want to grab our add driver button, and we also want to grab our who's driving button, because we're gonna need to do stuff with those. So pick driver. Okay. We also we're gonna set up a placeholder here for possible drivers. That's just gonna be an array. We'll keep that empty. Oh, couple of other things we need. So let's go with variable names equals document query selector names and variable driver. So this is the person who ultimately ends up being the driver, and that's going to be driver. Okay, so we've got our variables here. All right. Now let's add our event listeners. So when let's see, when add driver is clicked, so let's go add event listener. We're gonna listen for click events, and then we're gonna run our callback here. We want to okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm listening to see when this add driver button is clicked. And when it does, we are going to add the driver name to our names list over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to names inner HTML plus equals. So what that's going to do is it's going to take the content that's already there and add to it. So right now the inner HTML there is empty, but as we add names to the list, it'll continue to grow. So we're going to add a list item, li, and inside that we are going to we're going to grab the value from our potential driver. So actually there's one we're missing, right? Oh, actually, yeah, okay. So let's go, here we go, variable, just call that new name equals document query selector potential driver. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to I said new name value, and so let's see if that does anything. Oops. Here we go. So test. Another. Yep. Okay, cool. So that works. That's great. Good start. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to clear the value there. So new name value equals. All right, so that way as we add names, we can clear it to accept another new name. We also want to bring focus back to that field after you click the button so that people can enter another name. Cool. And then the last thing we want to do is we actually want to build up this array of drivers, because that's how we're going to pick a name. So drivers push new name inner HTML. And we need to do that first, or no, new name value. Oops. There we go. So before we flush the value, let's go ahead and do that. And then just to make sure that's working as expected, let's go ahead and log our array. So Chris, James, Tim. Okay, perfect. That is absolutely working as expected. Go ahead and clear this list out. Okay, so there's part one. We can build our list. That's awesome. The next thing we need to do is we need to actually select our driver. So when someone clicks that who's driving button, so here we can actually, let's give this some better names. So add drivers, all right, and select driver. And this is actually potential drivers. Okay, so now when pick is clicked, so we're gonna add another event listener, click, function, event, false. Okay, so when the potential driver is, or when the select driver button is clicked, there's one other thing we need to do. We need to shuffle that array and then output a result, because we want to mix it up. So I'm actually going to cheat. I recently wrote an article on how to shuffle JavaScript arrays. So let's go ahead and grab that. Here we go. So I'm going to grab that function and pull it in. We're not actually going to need the whole thing though. So what we really want is there's this math random, missing a semicolon there. Yeah, so let's go ahead and yeah, we'll just let that ride. Array sort, yeah, okay. So shuffle our array of drivers and pick one. All right, cool. So on click, we are going to randomize, got a variable equals shuffle, and then we're going to pass in our array of drivers here. And then the selected driver div that we have up here, this empty one. So we're going to go driver inner HTML equals randomize 0. So that's our first pick there. Cool. So let's see if that works. So we're going to go Chris, Tim, not time, Tim, Lisa, Scott. Okay, now let's see who's driving. Boom. Awesome. Cool. So now we just randomly kind of get a list of drivers. So we've got pretty much that full functionality in vanilla JavaScript in about 15 minutes. The styling is obviously a little leaves a little to be desired. But we can always kind of work on or tweak that later. Now, one thing that this quick little app doesn't have that I'd love to add is some data persistence. So it would be really great if when I reloaded this page, the drivers remained. I would hate for that to go away. So one way we can do that, I'm going to pull up my little cheat sheet here. This is something that anybody who buys any of my guides gets access to. So we are going to use localStorage to save that data. And because we're saving an array, we need to convert it to a string. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to, in addition to kind of updating that array, every time we are going to, we're going to go, so who's driving, or who should drive, we'll save it. So this is the name that we're saving to localStorage, and then we're going to save our drivers as a string to localStorage. One thing we are now going to do is, so let's go ahead and load that, right? So on load, let's see, hold on. There's a way to check, right? So let's go variable saved drivers equals, we're going to get item, we're going to get who should drive, and we're going to split it by comma. So basically when you save this to string, it's going to take that array and convert it into a string separated by comma. When we get that item, we're going to split it back out into array by comma. So every time it hits a comma, it'll just split it up into a new list. So if save drivers exists, then we're going to update drivers to save drivers. So if not, it'll just be kind of an empty list. Split of null. Okay, so let's remove that. Okay, there we go. Cool. All right, so now if I go Chris, Scott, Lisa, Janet, reload the page, did not work. Why not? Okay, so let's see. Console log saved drivers. Oh. Let's see, saved, yep. Okay, so I've got the wrong variable here. That's fine. Okay, so the list is there. The problem is I'm not updating our display. So we're gonna update, and then we want to, so we're gonna go for, okay, so what's happening here is we've got our list, but I'm not actually populating them into the DOM. So that's my bad. So for variable I equals 0, if I is less than saved, actually we can just stick to drivers now. So we'll go drivers length I plus plus. So we're going to loop through our array now, and we're going to basically do the same thing we're doing here. So we're going to update our view, right? So names inner HTML, we're going to add a list item, and it is going to be drivers I. Okay, so let's try this now. Bam, there we go. So now our list sticks with us, which is awesome. So anytime we reload the page, our drivers stay there. So that's cool. So there's two other things we want to do. So we're going to want to be able to clear that list, right? Because we don't always, at some point we may want to get rid of our list of drivers. So let's go clear. So we'll go clear drivers, and variable clear equals document query selector clear. Okay. Clear all drivers. Oh, here we go. Load drivers from local storage. All right. So clear, add event listener, click. Okay. So I am, for those of you keeping score at home, I'm rapidly approaching the 15-minute mark, but I think we can actually get this done, which would be super cool. So let's see. So in this case, this one's actually really easy. So names inner HTML, we're just going to empty it out. So if I were to click clear drivers, that gets emptied out. Now the one problem is those drivers are still saved in local storage. There's two other things we need to do. We need to update our drivers array. So we're just going to set it to an empty array. And then local storage, let's see, is it delete? I always forget how to do this. Did I save that in the cheat sheet? Local storage. Remove item. There we go. Local storage, remove item. Who should drive? So we'll just clear that all out. Right? So clear drivers. There we go. Chris, Tim, Kyle, Michelle. Boom. Who's driving? Always Tim. There we go. Kyle, Chris, Tim. All right. Awesome. So now we've got this all working. I guess one nice little extra thing to add here would be a way to delete individual folks from the list. Because that is one thing I think. Oh no, actually it's not. Here we go. So it's not on this list either. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's another video for another day. Because I honestly haven't given any thought to how that might work. Actually, you know what? Why not? Let's figure it out. So here's what we're gonna do. We are going to when we create our list, we are going to also add, in addition to their name, we will add a link here. We'll give it data remove equals, and then we'll also add the name. So new name value \a. Okay. So let's give this just a little like an n dash, so we know to remove it. And then let's see, we'll add it down there too to make sure we're being consistent. Okay, so that obviously looks terrible because it's, you know, it's a link or whatever, but that's okay. And so if I were to inspect this, I should see the name right there, data remove equals. No, I do not. Let's see. Why is that? Oh, because I just copied new name value, and that's not what we want. Drivers. Okay, try that again. All right, perfect. Now you can see data remove Chris. Okay, so here's one thing I'm actually going to need to look up. Remove array JavaScript. Remove array item by value. So they're just saying we loop. Let's see what this site has to say. Okay, so we can use index of. So if it exists, we splice it out. Okay. Cool. Let's try that. Okay. Okay. All right. So one more click event. Here we go. Right. Remove specific drivers. So for this one, we're actually going to have to use event bubbling because we are using a data attribute. So that's cool, right? So document query selector. No, not what I meant to do. Yes, document add event listener. Click function event. So we're using a technique for this one called event bubbling. With add event listener, you have to attach a very specific item, so you can't just kind of like you would in jQuery attach based on a class or some other sort of selector. You have to have a specific element attached to that event listener. So what I'm doing is I'm attaching our event listener to the document. That's going to register all clicks, and then we're going to filter it out and only take action on the ones that have our data attribute. So if event target has attribute, and we're going to go with, what did we say it was? Data remove. Okay, so in this case, if the clicked element doesn't have that data attribute, we'll just do nothing. If it does, now we can do our stuff. So what we're going to do is we are going to say index is event target get attribute data remove, and the array we want is drivers. So if drivers has that index, then we are going to remove it. Let's see if that works. I use tabs, that's in spaces, and then when we're done, we can console log drivers to see if it worked, because it's not going to update the view just yet. Okay, so console, let's go Chris. Ooh, looks like I'm hitting an error somewhere, line 105. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, let's try that again. All right, excellent. So now, if I were to click that, yeah, you can see that Tim comes out, Kyle comes out, Michelle comes out, Chris comes out. Awesome. Now it's pulling from local storage, so we're still there. So what we're going to do then is we're going to update our local storage value, and we're going to update our view. And I'll just copy paste this here. So we're gonna loop through our now updated, oops, wrong spot. We're gonna loop through our updated drivers. No, actually, so I guess the first thing we need to do is clear out inner HTML. Then we're gonna loop through our drivers array and add them all back in, the ones that are remaining. So let's try this again. So Tim and Michelle go away, and now it's just Chris and Kyle. Cool. Now there's a lot of opportunities in here for optimization. I've got a lot of kind of redundant code and stuff like that. We can clean that all up at another day. It's another topic for another video. At this point, it took us 25 minutes, so just a couple minutes longer than it took my buddy Dominic. But we've got something working in vanilla JavaScript, which I think is really cool. And we've got some added functionality. It is ugly as sin. Dominic's is much more beautiful. He's a really brilliant designer, so I'm not surprised. And we could pretty this up if we wanted to. But for now, we've just kind of got this bare bones functionality that we can tweak later. So once again, Chris Ferdinandi from GoMakeThings.com. If you're not already subscribed, I send out daily developer tips every day with tons of JavaScript tricks and tips, tools, fun resources, things like that. And I also write a series of guides on coding with vanilla JavaScript. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Cheers.